These walkers are headquartered in the old Sigismund Memorial Home in the western part of the town, not far from Sazakan's palace. To find the place, continue west from the bazaar along the main thoroughfare. The road branches after half a mile. Go left, and from there you will be able to see the palace. Go to the outer courtyard of the palace to the bone obelisk. From the compass set in the pavilion, walk straight north. That will lead you to the Sigismund home. It is very old, an imposing structure of slate gray. The upper windows will be lit.
He looked up from his cuticle contemplation and studied the half-elf.
I need hardly tell you that it is dangerous there, but we need word on their doings and their intentions. Troubling rumors have reached my agents, rumors that they intend to utilize the recent upheaval in Savar to their advantage. Carolo does not deem them a threat and takes no action against them, knowing that Sazakand would likely find them amusing. But Sazakand is gone at present, and this is more than a mere matter of state. We cannot allow more heresy to infect the flow of events. If they plan to aid Janessin or his devilish accomplices, we must know.
He gestured at a robe hanging from a light wooden rack. It was dark black, with a circle of darker black printed on the middle of the back of the robe.
I have procured one of the walker's garments, and I have a chameleon ring for you. A thin disguise against any with real eyes to see, but Panthelon and Martonius would be occupied, and I doubt any others could see through this enchantment. But be warned, they are cautious, and know their own. The risks are great.
General Alexander looked slightly uneasy.
I'm sorry we must ask this of you, Nima, but my own spies are tied up elsewhere, and none of my regular enlisted men have the finesse required for this job.
They exchanged nods, and she stepped out into the cold night air to the sound of soldiers talking boisterously around their campfires. She struck out west. The night was alive with activity, people milling to and fro, shopping, drinking, and talking. She passed a thin man preaching loudly on the goods of Ishdurna to a crowd of onlookers, some dubious, some apparently faithful, hanging on every word.
By his wounds he heals. He will hold you to his bosom, and you will feel the peace that comes from knowing that you are at one with your Creator. The world is not your enemy. Men are not your enemy. The enemy lurks inside men's own hearts.
She lingered a moment, listening to the sermon, but only a moment, then pressed on. Skirting around the faithful, she plunged into an alleyway that led in the direction of the bazaar. She wove her way around fruit vendors, dancing girls, men playing dice, and children running barefoot. Nima stepped into a heavily shadowed alcove and studied the flow of foot traffic through the bazaar. She slipped on the chameleon ring and focused her gaze on a tall man striding through the market. A thick shock of black hair flowed around large shoulders. A scimitar was at his belt, and he had the look of a soldier about him. Nima spun the setting on the ring and set her intentions on the man, and the ring settled, the enchantment taking. And Nima waited patiently until the man was well out of sight before stepping out of the shadows, now his exact doppelganger. Nima turned as a small laugh sounded to her left. A girl was standing there, maybe 8 or 9 years old, dressed in urchin's rags, watching her.
That was a neat trick, hey?
Nima smiled.
Thanks,
she said, muffling her voice. The girl giggled at the sound.
You don't sound right.
Well, maybe I'd better keep quiet then,
Nima said, giving the girl a pointed look. The child shrugged.
You're not from here, huh?
Maybe, maybe not. But I really do have to be going now,
Nima said, whirling the cloak that Heartstone had given her around her shoulders.
I'm Sasha. That's a walker's cloak. You ain't a walker.
Nima stopped, considering the urchin.
You know the walkers?
I might remember a few things from their hideout. Oh, maybe if I saw something gold.
Nima palmed a gold piece and tossed it to the child, who snapped it out of the air and stowed it swiftly away in a deep pocket.
That'll get you to the main gate. One more for the secret entrance.
Secret entrance?
Yup, all the big timers go in through the side door. I see 'em all the time.
There are 2 more gold pieces in it for you, if you can take me there.
Sasha flashed a white-toothed grin and beckoned the half-elf to follow her into the night. They passed through the city, a larger and a smaller shadow, crossing the palatial lawns before Sazarkan's fortress. Nima saw the obelisk that Hearthstone had mentioned in the distance, but Sasha knew a swifter route. Soon she had led Nima to the base of a stunted tree with long, snaking limbs that left a fine crust of fragrant pine needles on the ground underfoot. An austere mansion, one might almost call it a fortress, loomed ahead, and following Sasha's pointing finger, Nima watched a trio of cloaked and hooded men approaching the house from the side, heading toward a small door tucked into an alcove on the building's east wing.
Bang.
Sasha whispered, pointing as the door swung open and the men were admitted.
Is there a catchphrase or a secret knock?
Nima asked the girl, who shrugged.
Maybe.
Nima grimaced.
Thanks a lot.
She placed 2 more coins in the girl's palm.
Maybe I'll keep watch here. See how you make out.
Nima shrugged.
As you like, but don't give me away.
And she was off, heading towards the door. Her hands were trembling as she approached. She passed silently through the night, a darker patch of black against the sky, sliding through the shadows away from the torchlight. She drew close to the Sigismund Manor. The building was a huge and imposing stone affair. It looked like a giant mausoleum, with crenellated battlements and swooping lines of finely etched marble. Bas-relief carvings of wispy, humanish-looking creatures melding into chaotic patterns, reforming and dissolving, covered the outer walls. Cold green light shone from magic lanterns set in deep recesses of stone. A burly man stood guarding the door, wearing a cloak identical to the one Nima was wearing. She approached with feigned nonchalance, striding with a sure and easy step. Meanwhile, Bruckner and Tadalak had arrived back at the inn. They sat down to working out the cipher in the mysterious journal Nima had found in the dungeon under Elisbor. They puzzled over the arrangement of letters for close to 2 hours before Tadalak proposed, with a shriek of excitement, that they introduce a numerological code to translate every odd letter into a determined equivalent in the common gliss, the human tongue of these parts. Work proceeded on this tack for another hour before Bruckner realized the letter assignations they had been making were based on a misinterpretation of the code. He pointed this out. Tadalak slapped his forehead with a tiny palm, cursing himself. Then they began to make real headway in translating the text. Another hour of labor went by, and they had rendered the following.
I set out from under their watch today. Their reds will not corrupt my heart and soul. Their methods have grown too sweeping, and as a result, my Esmet lies dead, and I a living corpse. Too long and slow they run, but now quickened, like metal which pours from the heated anvil to wind a river of fire. If Caracasta keeps to her course, it could be more than her soul and her sanity which are lost. I must make haste to set right what I have not set crooked. Such is the way of honest men and fools. These are the only marks of passage, these drops of ink on vellum. There is nothing left but the weariness of walking, no other motive than the allaying of fears that I prayer never felt. A drop of blood in a barrel of wine, such will be the fate of it if she succeeds. There is nothing to do but move on.
There were a few blank pages after this, and when the text resumed, the cipher appeared notably different. Indeed, results were not yielded according to the previous method that made any sense at all. Back at the Sigismund Manor, Nima strode forward, flashing a wide, bright grin with stranger's teeth at the guard standing before the wooden door. A lime-green lantern pulsed violently over the man's head, casting everything into a ghoulish neon glow. Nima's heart skipped a beat as the man gave her disguised form a once-over. Then it began beating like a drum in relief as the man nodded, opening the door and gesturing her in. It closed behind her. She was in a hallway, surrounded by cold stone and eerie green light. Ahead, she could hear soft voices mingling together. She began to walk forward. Her nostrils were soon assailed by wild and pungent odors, some familiar, some utterly alien. Incense and smoke mixed with tar and other strange, otherworldly scents. She arrived in a massive circular chamber filled with acolytes dressed in the same robes that she wore. People were mingling, talking, drinking. Many were looking toward a raised dais that formed a sort of stage at the end of the hall. The room was ripe with anticipation, but the stage was, for now, empty. Nima kept her ears open as she scanned the room, searching for opportunities. She noticed a small cluster of people talking softly on the far side of the room. There were a few outliers standing by the edge of the group, not engaged, but apparently just listening in. One man in particular kept shifting his weight between his feet, seemingly bored and perhaps a bit antsy. Nima approached the mark. She didn't say anything. The man noted her approach, but seemed unconcerned. He kept craning his neck to look at the entrance. The group he was standing next to were speaking in hushed tones. Nima pulled up next to him. After a moment, asked,
Watching for something?
The man licked his lips nervously and said in a fast voice, No, not at all. He began scratching his arm. Never seen you here. Are you new to the Walkers, huh? He continued, saying, You ready for the big night tomorrow? His eyes opened wide, and he said, trailing off foolishly.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Nima said reassuringly.
But are you ready?
She asked, feigning concern. He shuffled his feet awkwardly, scratching at his left arm. I don't know, he muttered quietly. I guess I see that it's got to be done, but the dangers are too great. I don't want to. You don't want to what? Came a cold voice from behind Nima. A tall man wearing a black mask under his hood glided up next to the two. Losing your nerve, Chesler? He turned to face Nima, looking her up and down slowly. I don't know you, he said, his voice all ice. Who are you, and what are you doing here? He's okay, Chesler began nervously. He was just talking about the Shut your mouth, Chesler, the man spat out loudly. Several others looked over and began to head towards the group. Your tongue was ill-gifted to you, you sputtering fool. The masked man turned back to Nima. I thought I knew all the walkers, but your face is unknown. Who are you? Nima considered the man calmly.
You do not know my face, but I can assure you that I know yours. I can also assure you that if you were meant to know my face before now, then they would have made my face known to you.
He stood still a moment, considering what she had said, then replied carefully, Very well, though I think it odd that I should go uninformed. So tell me then, now that you have come to us, what great purpose occasions your revealing?
I am here to make certain that tomorrow night runs the way it ought. Chesler here was just about to tell me his concerns regarding the plan.
Chesler paled as she gestured to him. The man ignored him and continued to direct his questions to Nima, saying, And how do you propose we alleviate the poor man's worry? How best should we proceed tomorrow night?